Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KMBest. He's Lambie Series. We talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap, starting with the new card this week. It's going to be Frankie Raye in Series 5, and I gotta tell ya, I don't really get it when it comes to this card. This is a 2/3, and that's a fine stat line for a 2-drop, but its effect is that it doubles its power when you play a 6-cost card. And I wonder if there's just something I'm hugely missing here, because it doesn't double its power when you play any 6-cost card. It's just the next 6-cost card. So it's not going 3, 6, 12 in the miracle world where you're playing a bunch of 6s. It's not like the greatest wave and ramp card of all time. It's just a 2/6 if you play a 6. So what this deck is asking you to do is play a bunch of buffs and then also play a 6. And that feels like a big ask to get value out of this card.
I mean, okay, so I'll be honest, I read the card and at first I was like, okay, so you can become a 2/6,
You
then
can
a 2/12.
double it,
I don't know, that was first instinct. Then I realized it's not exactly. Yeah, so the thing is you kind of just never play this card, right? Because like you kind of have to build around it. Okay, I guess it can be your 2-drop of choice in your buff there. You know, like there are cards that buff are prevalent in the meta right now. It could be your 2-drop of choice. Then you realize the 2-drop of choice is Mr. Fantastic, it's Merlin, it's Surge, and then you realize you never have space for this payoff card, which is not exactly a really good payoff anyway. So this card is weird because I feel like they should just allow it to be a 2/12 and change the text. Then it's actually a deck type. Like it will be the Thena of the Surtur deck, the Thena and Surtur of the Surtur deck, that kind of thing. Or something like that. Maybe not Surtur deck, of like a Sixes deck or Ramp deck or whatever. But
we get it.
But like, yeah, you get it. But basically the fact that it's capped at 2/6 without additional effort. I mean, 2/6, that's it. Like every other card that's premium at 2-cost slot does more than a 2/6. So
I think this card reminds me a lot of Luna Snow, which that released at the premium stat line of 3/5, right? Everything that was a 3/5 when Luna Snow came out, it was awesome, right? That's the biggest stat line you could put on a card like that. And this card, I feel like, I know this sounds insane, but if you want us to play this cries out to be a 2/4 that turns into a 2/8, right? Like that's what it wants to be. And I think that it's just very difficult for them to bite the bullet on things like that, in much the same way that it took, they have to release Luna Snow at a 3/5, realize that it's bad there before they can actually put it to 3/6. Even if they think they know it's supposed to be a 3/6, it just seems a little bit insane to actually pull the trigger on that. But what's bothering me about it is timelines, right? I can see a world where this card was being designed as Galacta and Gwenpool were really strong, and they were just going to put this card into that world and try to have those decks play some 6s. And I can see that actually happening, right? But they've progressively nerfed Galacta. They've progressively nerfed Gwenpool. They progressively nerfed the packages that card goes in. And so now this card releases when those cards are no longer the mid-range slop decks of the moment. And beyond that, there are, just general play pattern concerns, which would be along the lines of, hey, why are we bothering to play a 6-drop when part of the point of these buff decks is that we get to be the best 2-lane contester on the final turn of the game, with stuff like Brood and Mr. Sinister being big as hell? That's the point of those decks. So why are we 6-dropping, right? And that, I think, is largely the thing that pushes against this card. It's not just a card that doesn't necessarily have a home. It's a card that, even if it did have a home, would be the secondary thing in it. There is one deck that I'm kind of side-eyeing here, and it's like a Clog kind of thing, where Clog actually, that'll play a 6-drop. It might play 2 6-drops. You're a Magic deck. There's some reliability to a Clog with a 2/6, but it's just a 2/6. And I feel like if this was a 2/8, I actually would be doing Clog with this in Galactus, right? That is a thing that I would probably be doing. At 2/3, I feel like it's asking too much of me in deck building to become that. It needs to be a little bit freer if it wants to be a card that I am really interested in picking up. That's my read right now.
Yeah, I mean, like at 2/6, like you wouldn't even consider this at all in Flock simply because you have the 1/6 that benefits your game plan more, which is the Hoon anyway, right? This one doesn't actually clock anything. It's just like a supplement to the deck. Yeah, but I was just wondering, like, what if we actually just like let loose on the reins on this one and give it the able to multiply more than once thing? That would definitely make it a potential like sixes deck. Like you would actively build towards making this the Angela of that deck, right? But the thing is now it can't do that.
I think the issue with that is like, first of all, I do think it's probably the right thing to do, but I think if they did that, they'd probably like make it a 2/2 or something. It's just like,
So much worse though.
It's so much worse. Like, I think it probably would be safe to release that card if it, like, in this context. Personally, I think incentivizing playing sixes is pretty interesting, but like, just me. What if you made a card that scaled on 5s? I realize bad design for the Galactus season. I get it. It doesn't work for this. But what if this was a card that just like play 5s and then you'll do that? And I feel like that would be a really interesting way to get like a Zabu for 5s in the game, which I find way more compelling than 6s the card. So, Firelord 4/6 on reveal, revive one of your discarded or destroyed 3-cost cards here. At baseline, small Ghost Rider strikes me as a very plausible thing. There are definitely decks that have played like small Gambit packages. This could be the kind of thing that allows a sort of Dakin-y hybrid destroy discard to not necessarily function, but like kind of exist. That kind of sort of sacrificey mid-range has always been pretty appealing to me in the abstract, but in the specific, I do feel like it often involves the card Gambit, which is a card people despise pretty deeply. Where do you see this card ending up? What do you envision as the future for a card like this? Because I look at it and I'm just like, that is a whole lot of numbers if you can pull it off. Like 4/6 with upside, second card, repeating something. There's some cool stuff you can do there. Are we interested in doing that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I just want to say that I like this style of card a lot. Like when you mentioned the whole like sacrificey mid range, right? This is like the epitome of sacrificey mid range. Like you want to go like 1/2, discard some, destroy something by 3, play this on a 4/6, bring it back. Is that kind of it's like the Ghost Rider thing, but like I guess a bit smaller ball, small ball Ghost Rider, right? Like, but I like this kind of thing. Like you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, bring back a punch of stats. On 5, play some control card like Sandman. Okay, obviously not exactly Sandman, but like a control card, and then you play the big 6. Like it's the simplest form of Marvel Snap deck, and then this has a small discard engine in it. Yeah, I like the card. I don't exactly know what we want to discard or destroy. Like I guess destroy, you could go with like Deckard. But then again, you're not playing this on 4, right? You're playing this on later than 4, which means you want to play a 5s and 6, which means you don't play this. So I guess for now, because this is not really like, doesn't look like a big, like huge end of game combo card. It looks like you said, on curve combo card. So you kind of want to curve naturally into having discarded or destroyed by 3. And then on 4, you play this thing, and then you get the stats, and then you go from there. So not too sure exactly what is the best package for that right now. But I could see, I mean, some of the cards in the game already support this quite easily, but I don't know if it's enough power to be relevant in the game right now.
I'm wondering about like some sort of Zabu Silver Samurai, this kind of thing, where what you're doing with it is just like, I'm going to make sure my Silver Samurai is like purely one-sided here. Like that kind of type of deck building. I'm not sure there's room for it in there. But like that sort of like incremental advantage where it's like, all right, I got this Fenris Wolf, I got this guy right here, and I've got like all of these little things that make discarding my opponent's cards valuable. The problem is, I think in like the trend of Marvel Snap, discard has gotten a little less valuable when targeted at your opponent because card quality has gone up so much. So like you have these cards that are able to like hard carry a game just by existing on the board. Right. And so it's like valuable to discard stuff, especially in a world where like Invisible Woman First Steps is running around here. Having a Silver Samurai discard their Havoc, that's really impactful. A Silver Samurai discarding their Sunspot, that's really impactful. Thena, that's really impactful. All that stuff is actually like an argument for Silver Samurai existing right now. And I think a large part of the reason that it doesn't is that the stats on it are terrible. And I don't think the stats on this are much better, but I do like that they work together. But ultimately, it's going to be one of those things where it's like, if you get the Zabu and these start costing 3, these are amazing. If you don't get the Zabu and they start costing 4, they're much less functional. And I think also this obviously Firelord and Airwalker go together. Airwalker, a card we have not discussed. I believe that is the card from the limited time game mode this month. It is an interesting thing to continually loop your Firelord and Airwalker that says to me that there must be something to do there, but every time I set my brain to figuring out what that something is, I get absolutely nowhere. It just feels like there must be something, and that's a scary thing, because every time it feels like there must be something, but you can't come up with an actual application for it, a lot of times that second part is right, not the first part.
Yeah, I mean, Grandmaster had that going for him for like months, man. Like the this is gonna be something, but we never found the something.
Ever.
Okay, but like sidetrack a bit. But I guess SD doesn't need my advice. But I keep thinking of ideas to make like the previous card and this card better, even though they haven't already been released.
They're
but
not
like
even out. This card's
like,
guys.
Yeah. No, because this card is mid, right? Like as much as I like the card, it's mid. The previous card is also mid. It's probably worse than mid. But like, can you imagine if this was just had the option to revive, discarded or destroyed 3 or less cost cards? Like, I think that would be like open up the spectrum of the cards so much more, just because it's like it's not as inflexible. But then again, cards not even out. We'll see.
Are you saying like your opponent's discarded or destroyed cards too?
No, just mine, but like 3 or less cost. This one is just 3 cost strictly. So
yeah. Let's talk about Stardust, or the lack of Stardust. She's fine, but I feel like we get to take a victory lap on this one. Concerns about this card were massively, massively, massively overblown, and I want to talk a little bit about why. Players as a whole, I think, of Marvel Snap are overly sensitive to hypotheticals. And what I mean by that is they look at a card and they think of all the ways it could screw them over, or all the things that it could possibly impact. But that's not how card viability is really determined. And what ends up being relevant in a metagame is not about possibility, it's about reality. And so a lot of the conversations around Stardust revolved around, here is a list of all the cards that Stardust hits. Don't you think it's OP for them to make a card that hits all this stuff? And the answer is, factually, no, it's not OP. This card is mid as hell. Do you know why? It's because it's a freaking 4/7. Like, this is a card that is not an amazing body. People are acting like 4/7 is the greatest thing on earth. I like a 4/7 stat line. It does not go in every deck. Every time I played Stardust, the conclusion I came to was I prefer playing Enchantress over this, and nobody's even playing that. There is so much competition. People think that tech soup decks just spring up fully formed out of the ether. Some guy just chucked all the tech cards in a shell, and it just magically worked. And like, it's not contextual at all, when they're in fact the most contextual decks of all time. Is Stardust a card that has the potential to be good in the future? Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad card. It's a good card to exist. It's a card that's going to serve as a release valve. But I think the idea of looking at a card that is a release valve for some specific type of deck and saying it's OP because it does this is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous mode of analysis to say, oh, look, this card beats Hela and Nimrod and White Tiger and M'Baku. And it's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, something has to do that. It's not OP to have a card that does that. It's like doing analysis on Killmonger and saying, wow, Killmonger is so busted, it beats Sauron and Scorn. Like, does it? It's like, does it actually? Like, or are those still perfectly playable decks? Wow, Mr. Negative is so busted, wow, Mobius is so busted, it beats Mr. Negative. Like, Mr. Negative hasn't been a good deck for 1.5 years since Mobius released? What are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about? Cards having counters does not mean the decks are unplayable. If anything, these decks got better because they got Redshift in them. And so now people are playing Ghost Rider, a card that dies to Stardust, and Hela, a card that dies to Stardust at higher rates than they were before this card came out. I'm losing my mind a little bit, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this type of floodgate card, I'm gonna call it a floodgate card, right? Because like floodgate is essentially like cards that stop your opponent from doing specific things. So this is stopping your opponent from adding cards to locations except by playing or moving them. It's such a specific condition. Also, it does a very specific thing. Like, honestly, Mobius being a 3/3 which is horrible stats, but Mobius does way more, because what Mobius does is it actually hits way more things that could be potentially game breaking, and we've seen that in the past, right? The things that this card hits right now, like it's like for this to be relevant in the meta game, it has to hit like the main plan of the tier 0 deck and completely destroy it, which clearly is not gonna happen. It's not happening right now. There's nothing that this hits that completely destroys a deck, in the meta right now. So I think that not much to say about the review here, except that like this card will be around, but it's the furthest thing from busted.
They literally perfectly stuck the landing on this card. It's a card that is not strong enough to go in every deck, so you can still play Hela and Nimrod if you feel like it. You can still play M'Baku if you feel like it. But if any of that stuff ever becomes a problem, people can put Stardust in their decks, and then it won't be a problem. It is doing exactly what a card like this is supposed to do. Exactly what a card like this is supposed to do, which is exist as an option without precluding the ability of those decks to be played until they are problems in their own right. I really feel like we have gotten to a point where people just see a tech card and assume that it must be good. But these cards are not all Shang-Chi, and frankly, even Shang-Chi isn't as good as people think he is.
Yeah, so I just want to mention this little thing about what this thing's called. It's called a stun deck. I don't know if you guys, okay, you guys probably don't hear this a lot in Marvel Snap, but a stun deck is just basically like a deck that runs a bunch of like it's just a bunch of like cards that they just run a bunch of cards that stop your opponent from doing stuff. It's like so basically, if like look at this card, right? Cards can't be added to locations except by playing or moving them 4/7. They need to create like a bunch of 4/7s that stop your opponent from doing stuff in different ways, and that becomes a deck. Like cards can't be added to your opponent's hand. Opponent can't draw more than one card, and they are all 4/7s. That's like the ultimate. Like you don't really care what your opponent does. You just play all these cards that says like God says no, and then your opponent just can't do anything. But like you need like a lot of these. Like this one is just too specific of condition.
Is that Yu-Gi-Oh? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, stun Yu-Gi-Oh is just Yu-Gi-Oh thing, yeah. Like basically cards that make your opponent not be able to play the game. But this one is just too specific.
First Steps Galactus, kind of a card that's not getting a lot of hype. I think people are like a little bit too low on him. Like I don't think he's amazing, but I think people are acting like he's like just unplayable trash because he's not the next busted 2-drop. And I get it. Like see, expectations on season passes are high, right? Like I understand. But like this is a pretty good card. This is a card that's like, yeah, that's pretty solid. You can do some strong stuff with this. I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up getting like one of those sort of later hype trains on it, where like right now a lot of things are probably a little too strong and a little too cheap specifically for a card like this to succeed. But it is the kind of thing that just has good fundamentals and that with a couple of balance changes could very easily start succeeding in a meaningful way. The largest issue this guy runs into is just the points that are available with cheap cards right now are too high for a card that is this singularly big to be relevant against a lot of the time, unless you are playing, a clog deck, right? But like in a clog deck, this guy's probably better than Red Hulk. So there is something to be said for that.
Yeah, so the thing about the statement about like people's expectations being so high when it comes to season pass cards now cannot be truer, right? Like just look at the string of 2s. They love their 2/3s, man, or 2/2s or whatever. They love the overpowered like on curve like game winning scalar things, and that's literally what's been happening with the whole Merlin search and Mr. Fantastic thing. Well, but and then obviously previously Sam and stuff. But I mean Galactus, to be completely frank, I was a little bit less high on this card last week during the video. But then now that I look at it, like you said, right, it fits perfectly in Clock. It's just the big guy, and it's so easy to be the big guy. And Clock definitely needs the big guy to fill out a lane just to win like one other location that's not Clock, So that makes a lot of sense. Honestly, this card probably is just actually a lot more flexible than we thought. Like now we are talking about Clock, yes, but this is like the big guy in many decks. Like if Thanos were to come back, this could be the big guy in Thanos as well, for example. So like it's very, Thanos and Galactus in the same deck kind of cool for Lord or just like boss monster stuff. But anyway, but yeah, it could be a thing in Thanos as well. Like it's just a flexible good card. They're not busted, but just big and ends games like the Galactus should. So
3 other cards came out last week. There are a couple that are probably worth talking about just in context. Just want to give you all the full review. Terrax the Tamer is absolutely an upgraded Darkhawk. He unfortunately basically only goes in that deck, but he is quite strong. Like the way you are able to play for priority with this guy and just put 3 rocks in your opponent's deck, he's way, way better than Rock Slide. He costs 3, which makes him better than Rock Slide basically by default, because Rock Slide at 4 is really hard to do for a deck that has a curve as low as many of the Darkhawk decks have. The largest thing holding him back is that he is only a Darkhawk card, which means that if a 5/15 is not relevant in the metagame, you are not going to get a lot of value out of him, but you can play him in Darkhawk decks, which are not embarrassing right now. They're just being held up by other things like a Merlin package or, for example, a Misery Hood package. That stuff also really wants you to play the 3-drop version of Rock Guy instead of the 4-drop version of Rock Guy, so you can fit more spells in. So he's definitely good. Redshift has been pretty solid. Redshift Ghost Rider stuff. I mean, bluntly, it is just another Juggernaut deck where it's like, I've got 7 energy because I played Luna Snow, and then I'm going to play Ghost Rider reviving my Agatha and a Juggernaut, and that's going to win the lanes. And like, if you can do that, you're just going to be a good enough deck. And that's sort of where Redshift is at. Those are the 2 I wanted to highlight specifically as like, those are probably actually the best cards released last week. Maybe not, depending on how you feel about this stuff, but like I think those 2 are like pretty high up there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree in the sense that I know we did have like a whole segment for Stardust, right? But it's mainly just to highlight the overreaction to Stardust. We're not saying that the Stardust is like better, because I actually do think the Redshift and Terrax is just easily, I wouldn't say like better because you can't really compare their like abilities, right? But I think Redshift and Terrax just kind of just do more for what they since upon release, right? Like yes, Terrax is only a Darkhawk card, but it's for sure a boost to the Darkhawk archetype, right? And I know there are Darkhawk diehards out there, and I was wrong. It was actually easy to fit into the Darkhawk deck, right? 3 costs. You're right. You're right about the whole like not like wanting a 3 mana rock creator guy. Now that Rock Slide is 4,
so bad to play a 4. It's
because Misery is a 4/9, which is just better. But yeah, but anyway, so that 3/3 Terrax makes sense in the deck. Redshift also really interesting. I mean, like I was the highest on this card amongst all the cards that were released, like when we were talking about it last week. Because Redshift, I feel like targeted discards. I mentioned a lot about targeted discards, and here we go. Obviously, targeted discards means you drop Agatha, stuff like that. So it makes a lot of sense. It's a low cost card that fits very nicely into the already stable game plan. Yeah, I am actually just there's nothing much to add. They are not fantastic cards, honestly. Honestly, every single card this week has not been fantastic. All right, low-key Galactus is the most fun. It's the most fantastic one, Galactus. But like Redshift, decent. Yeah, I mean,
I will say this. I do think that we're kind of approaching the point of like there have been one too many decks that are just like, I'm gonna abuse Agatha. Like I just kind of don't think that should be a part of the game.
Encouraged. Yeah, I know.
Like it's just one of those things where it's like, I understand why it exists, and it's definitely not nerfable on power level, but the more I look at it, the more I'm like, this might not be a problem right now. It might not be a problem in a year, but at some point this will be a problem, and I don't understand why this is allowed. In much the same way that like Thanos starting in hand, where it was like, I get it, but like at some point there's going to be something stupid that makes this a problem. And I'm not saying Redshift is that. It's just, all right, we gotta like, I feel like people are doing like, haha, check out my meme deck. I'm playing Agatha. And it's like, no, you're not. You're discarding it on turn 2. What are we talking about here? You're not playing a meme deck. That's a good deck. Stop stealing meme deck valor by pretending this is a meme.
What's the funny thing about this whole like meme deck thing? Like, I don't know if it's a content creator thing. It's just my personal observation of it. But every time like someone posts like this is a fun deck that I'm just doing for fun, they secretly probably hope that it's really good and people like play it, and then it becomes like they'll be like, oh, this is just for fun. I'm just testing stuff. But then when it becomes really good, they'll be like, I told you so. I was the first to make this deck. I mean, but you guys get what I mean. I'm not saying anyone. I'm just saying like in general, this is the vibe.
He is calling me out right now.
No. You didn't make the number 1 deck, right? Was it number 2? I will talk about this.
It was number 2.
Cup. Yeah.
Also, like, I want to be super clear. I didn't make that. I guess I kind of made that deck. I don't know. It depends on like how you think about deck building, right?
There's 12 cards, man. You made the deck.
Right, but like I played Safety Blades build of the deck, which was like the Stardust Mobius no Prodigy build. And I just like took cards out of it until I was happier with it over the course of a stream, basically.
I mean,
I
it's
was
12
like,
cards. If you take 2 cards
right.
out, it's 20%. So like,
Yeah, but I was like, okay, Stardust, I don't like that. I'm getting it out of here. Prodigy's going in, right? And then Prodigy meant that I had to take the Black Cat out and get Sunspot in. And then I was like, okay, I want to get another card out. I need Negasonic in here because I want to be rolling downhill. Basically, it is like a meaningfully different deck. But the point is, it did start with Safety Blade's deck. So shout out to Safety Blade. But yeah, the deck that finished second place in the Golden Gauntlet was not only a deck from one of my videos, it was a deck from one that was played by one of my viewers who specifically said in the chat, in the top 16 chat in the chat room, when I asked about it, he was like, oh yeah, thanks for the KM boost. So that was, I felt great about that, obviously. It was the Invisible Woman First Steps deck with the Negasonic Juggernaut package. And as much as I want to talk about Invisible Woman First Steps in her own right, and of course the deck that won, those are the next topics. I really want to talk about Juggernaut right now. I want to talk about Juggernaut. I want to talk about Negasonic. I want to talk about this priority stuff, this run downhill priority stuff, because I think what I'm starting to realize is when people were complaining about tech slop, a lot of the time what they actually meant was Juggernaut and Negasonic, I think. And I think that's a pretty valid complaint. Like, I'm not here for complaining about Shang-Chi, Enchantress, and Stardust, but I am here for complaining about a card that just invalidates the ability to play cards. And I think when you talk about really invalidating stuff, Juggernaut and Negasonic are the two strongest cards at doing that, and they're so damn cheap. And I kind of wonder if, like, because like when I was making that deck, what I basically was doing was saying, I think these are the two best cards against this deck. So what I'm going to do is play them in here and just win the hell out of every mirror, right? That was pretty much the idea, is I'll play for Prio in the mirror, and then I'll Juggernaut Negasonic them, and then they just die. They just can't. Like, if you're playing a mirror and you're ahead and you're playing those cards, it's basically impossible to win. Like, or basically impossible to lose if you're doing that. And that was sort of the idea here, where, like, you know, a lot of the time mirrors are, you know, who drew Invisible Woman and all that stuff. Juggernaut lets you win even if you have the worst Invisible Woman draw, because he's stupid. Negasonic lets you win even if you have the worst Invisible Woman draw, because she's stupid. Are these cards a problem?
I want to like talk. I mean, I want to like throw an idea out there, because I feel like I kind of disagree if you guys think it's a problem. So here's my take, right? So the thing is, okay, so once again, Professor X, Alioth, Negasonic, and yeah, okay, I'm gonna use these cards as in the same analogy, because what they do is that they provide you with inevitable, like, you just win conditions, right? Like, it's the obvious, like, you just win. So people feel bad about losing to, like, oh, they have a Negasonic, I'm dead. Oh, they have a Juggernaut, I'm dead. Like, they have this one card, I'm dead. But then again, right, you think about it, there's actually a lot of other situations that you just die, but you don't even know. Like, if random example, okay, like if Bounce plays Beast on turn 5 and bounces 4/1 drops, you also just die most of the time on the final turn, but it's just that you're dying to points and not one inevitable, like, boom, you know. So you kind of, there are actually kind of a lot of situations that you also just die, like, versus every other deck, but it doesn't feel as bad because you don't really count, or you don't really know that it's like exactly dead, but you are actually exactly dead, you just don't know. It's just that these cards like Juggernaut and Negasonic, like, you know, the one card will do it, you know. So it feels like worse. But honestly, I feel like that's the thing. If you set up for that end game, you kind of have that inevitability. It's just that Juggernaut and Negasonic do it in one card. Is it really that much worse? I actually don't think so. You know, I feel like if you, I guess it's a problem if it ends up being too easy to set up for that end game, which currently I don't think it is, by the way. I think like it takes effort and proper placement and like turn, like, positioning, all that to set up for that perfect Juggernaut Negasonic end game. So I don't think it's like too much, you know. I think it takes effort to set these up. So I think we're actually in a fine spot with these cards. I don't think it's a problem personally.
I think that the one that stands out to me is Juggernaut, and what I don't like is that he works with and without Prio. Like, that's like the thing where it's like, if you spend all this time setting up to make a Negasonic blow me up, sure, you know, I think that's a little bit strong, but sure. Juggernaut working both ways is like, it's like his upside is he's Alioth plus Cosmo, and his downside is if your opponent isn't doing something that interacts and they're just like putting stats there, he's still going to win the lane. Like it's
okay,
like,
but I mean, look at it this way, right? Like, remember in Thanos meta, no one was really complaining about Juggernaut because the
yes,
premier deck fills up every location.
absolutely,
So
yes.
the thing is, this is a tech card relevant now to the current meta, which will naturally phase out once we go back to fill up the board. You know, currently we are not really in fill up the entire board meta. So I really think it's fine. Like, I really
Okay.
think Juggernaut is a fine card because it's just meta relevant now because you don't do fill up the board like what Thanos used to do.
I agree with that, but I also think that's the aberration. Like, if
Mm.
there is not a deck like that, it is a Juggernaut meta. And there is more often not a deck like that than there is a deck like that. The winner of the Golden Gauntlet, Fox / Corvus Enjoyer, brought Elektra in his deck, and I just want to take an abbreviated victory lap on being an Elektra believer, because I think it's just me and like one other guy who were like, this card is actually good. Like, this card is
you
actually
and one other
good.
guy, because I never thought of like.
It's
Okay, anyway,
like we've been on Elektra Island. If you go back, there's a video where like all you have to do is look for the one with Elektra in the thumbnail, where I talk about how like, no, she's not the greatest card in the world, but 1-drops have so little competition, right? Like, there are just so few good 1-drops that like, if you just want a good 1-drop in your deck, Elektra's a really great option. And especially in a metagame like this, where there are demons from the hood, there are sunspots that are going to get to 10 bajillion power, things like that, like Ant-Men. Like, there's just a bunch of hits for a card, and she can often play for like 1/6, 1/7 with very little investment. But because she's also a base 1/2, you're not losing out on anything. You have like the potential to just like, oh, it's just a card I play. It's the same logic as with Spider-Ham, but I think Elektra can be a little more game winning because nobody has ever played around her in a million years. Where it's just like, this is a card that has utility. And the other thing that the person who won was doing was playing this in like an ongoing shell that was very teched towards beating Invisible Woman first steps. There were like cannonballs to mess up prodigies on 5, with Mercury to like really mess up Invisible Woman first steps. The stats that the ongoing deck is able to put out with things like Captain Carter and Moonstone, that kind of stuff is really, really powerful as well. But largely, what I liked about the deck wasn't just the stats ability of targeting this, it was the specific tech ability of targeting this. I will say, Lambie, you identified a weakness in the metagame that was just, what if we played the most points ever? That is a lot of what the ongoing decks were keying off of here.
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, so the funny thing was that like I actually was watching KM's video before my submission for the tournament this weekend. The funny thing is, okay, so I overslept, but that's not the point. But the point was I decided I wanted to be more points than that Invisible Woman deck that KM was like sort of popularizing, because I noticed that like it was on average like 20 plus points per location, like very consistently, which is a good thing. But Bounce does that like better. So I wanted to bring Bounce, and also because I like was very practiced with Bounce. So, and it naturally just gets more points than that deck. 20 plus in each location easily. But then again, like you mentioned, right? Like there was this Iron Man deck that the ongoing shell that did so much better job at just like getting more points than the Invisible Woman stuff. And yeah, the Elektra thing is really cool, right? Because in Thanos meta, you kind of never want to run Elektra because there's too many bad hits, right? But in this meta where it's like one very premium guy, the Sunspot that's Omega huge, right? And you'll be asking like, why not just Killmonger? Well, this card is 1 cost. It's relevant. The fact that it's like 1 cost, and then it hits like a 110 or more than 110, by the way, a Sunspot, for example, is super relevant. So I can see Elektra being relevant now. I'm obviously not an Elektra believer because I never talk about the card. I like KM said, it's just him and one guy. It's not me. I'm not
It's
the other
me
guy.
and one other guy,
But,
man.
like, yeah, I'm not the other guy, but I guess it's relevant now, right? So good on that guy. I think good on that guy for identifying that it's relevant now and taking advantage of that, and then getting second place. So we're definitely well deserved.
First place, to be clear.
Oh, first place, my bad.
And for the record, the Elektra won the tournament. Like, the final play of the tournament was a 7-cuber in Conquest. They both had 7 left. And there was the Invisible Woman First Steps deck on the other side. And if the Invisible Woman First Steps deck was able to comfortably play a Sunspot in the right lane where they had 1 space open, they would win that lane. They were unable to do that correctly, I might add. They ended up having to play a Negasonic there instead, and the Sunspot in a left lane that already had Athena in it. again, with an active Invisible Woman Prodigy. So the Sunspot was 1 billion points effectively. And the Athena was already going to win that other lane. The threat of an Elektra forced them to play the Sunspot in the wrong lane. And for the record, correct read, the Elektra was there. What ended up happening was an Elektra Cannonball in that right lane to preclude any possibility of the Sunspot winning that location. And it won the entire tournament. This was not a game where it was like, oh, Elektra was carried by the rest of the deck. She literally won the matchup. She was in there to win. So, I mean, let's talk about the Boogeyman, right? I mean, coming out of this, I still feel like Invisible Woman First Steps is the best deck in the game. Like, if we could just be real for a second, like, yeah, I still do think this deck is the best deck in the entire game. And I realize there's plenty of ways of trying to target it. And like, you can try to do whatever it is. Like, this is Marvel Snap. As bad as people complain, it's always going to be a pretty balanced game. Like, the outliers are never outliers by that much. But this is a deck that is pretty clearly the best in the game to me. And I think it's not even necessarily in its final form. And it's a very powerful deck that does very powerful things and can fit a lot of different synergies in it. I was championing a Victoria hand hybridization before, I eventually got forced back down to earth and realized I had to just be a Juggernaut deck instead. Like, I get it, right? Like, there's just a bunch that can happen here, but like, they gotta nerf this, right? Like, this is a beatable deck because every Marvel Snap deck is beatable, but like, it's nerfable too, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this card is that, okay, so obviously I know it's in a good deck. It has a range of good decks, which is why we are considering it for nerfs, right? Like, it's not just one good deck. It's like, it's probably the best deck, and then there's a few like range of like decent good decks that have Invisible Woman First Steps in it. But there's also like some really bad decks that just become so much better because of this card. Like, I guess really bad is too much of a thing to say. But like, I was looking at some of this. There was this like Doom 2099 Invisible Woman deck that like was so simple to play, but probably could just auto win games if you drew the perfect curve with the IW.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the fact that this is global, like the IW First Steps is like globally accepted as a card that can be in any deck and then make it solve better. Okay, not really any deck, but like in many decks and made it solve better. Gives it like definite like attention to be a nerf candidate, right? Because like it fulfills every role. Like, it makes bad decks better. It makes good decks way gooder. That's not English, I know, but like it makes good decks way better and that kind of thing. So like, definitely a nerf candidate because it kind of just covers everything. But I guess one thing that it doesn't cover is like, if they nerf it, people will be sad because they just bought it.
Well, I hope that we were able to make a good day gooder for you, the viewer. Thank you so much for watching. I've been KMBest. He's been Lambie Series. He's going to take us out.
All right, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.